An Australian nurse once wrote a book about the top 5 regrets people had on their deathbed. Her name was Bronnie Ware. She spent years caring for people in their final days, and what she discovered through conversations was heartbreaking. Most people didn't regret what they did, they regretted what they didn't do. Now, I'm not a nurse, but I have spent over 20 years having deep conversations with highly successful international families, people about to retire, the retired, and people who are still in the busy grind of life. And the themes are surprisingly similar, because in life, time always wins, and time is the one thing that you just can't buy any more of. So in today's video, I'm going to show you the 5 most common regrets people had at the end of their lives from Bronnie Ware's powerful book. And I'm also going to tell you the 5 big regrets that I hear from retirees again and again, and how to make sure those words never become part of your own story. Now, life's not a rehearsal. Every day, precious time is ticking away, and you don't get to do it all over again. But too many of us live like it is a rehearsal. We put things off. We delay happiness until some unspecified future objective that never actually arrives. And we say to ourselves, if only, often ending up with a life that we hadn't quite planned for. So what were the 5 regrets of the dying from Bronnie's book? The first of these was that I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life that others expected of me. These people live life on autopilot, following what society, family, or culture tells them should be the right path, instead of asking themselves, what do I actually want? The second one was that I wish I hadn't worked so hard. These people created business with purpose, thinking the more that they work, the more valuable they potentially are. The third one was that I wish I'd had the courage to express my feeling. These people avoided uncomfortable conversations, they bottled things up, even with those closest to them. The fourth one was I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. They assumed old friendships would survive long gaps when they didn't. And the final one was I wish I let myself be happier. These people treat joy like a luxury. They feel guilty enjoying life fully, especially if those around them are struggling. That's why I've included a simple resource to help you pause, reflect, and make sure that you're also not heading towards the kind of regrets that we're going to talk through today. It's something we normally only share with our clients, but I hope it's going to make a real difference for you. You can download it using the link below to follow through as we go. And if you find anything of value, please consider liking, subscribing, or commenting, as this really helps us as we build this channel. So, what did retirees wish that they had done differently? As you'll see, 2 of them are quite similar to Bronnie's observations, whilst the others are much more unique to retirees. Number 1 is that I wish I had done it sooner. Many people wait for perfect clarity before making a move. They want markets to be stable, the pension pot to hit an exact figure, the time to feel just right. But here's the truth. That moment rarely, if ever, arrives. And in the meantime, the window, whether they're healthy, curious, free to enjoy a great retirement, well, that quietly starts to close. I remember one specific client in his mid-50s who could have easily stepped back. He was already financially independent, but he kept saying, just one more year, just one more year. By the time he finally took the leap, his partner had been diagnosed with a serious illness. Their retirement travel plans? Cancelled. The sabbatical? Too late. He eventually did retire well, but with huge life regret. Now, modern retirement doesn't have to be an all or nothing, but because many people treat it like a cliff edge, a dramatic, irreversible leap, people often do put it off far longer than they should. They end up working through their prime years of energy only to retire when they're already worn down. So the regret we hear so often is simple. I had the means, I just didn't realize I had the permission. So maybe explore a phased retirement, taking a year off, or moving to part-time, or a reduced workload, or once you have independence, consider continue earning, but in a different way. You don't have to vanish overnight, but you can start sooner than you think. Number 2, I wish I had spent more money earlier on in retirement. Many people underspend in retirement, even when they save diligently and build real financial security. They still hold back. Now, why is this? It's because they're terrified of running out of money. They treat their retirement fund like it's fragile, when in reality it's often much more than enough. One client spent years saving millions. When he retired in his 60s, he still lived like he was in his 30s, cutting back, skipping holidays, and constantly worrying about enough. It wasn't until his mid-70s after a health scare that he started spending freely. His words, "I could have afforded the memories. Instead, I banked the money and I lost the time." So the early years of retirement are your golden window. You're healthy, you're mobile, and often on the go. This is the time for the big trips, the bucket list experiences, or simply enjoying a lifestyle that you've really earned. Yet many people move into this phase with a lack of clarity and a scarcity mindset. They often end up sitting on wealth they could have enjoyed, and by the time they feel safe enough to spend it, they've already lost the healthy energy or the desire to do it. Perhaps consider creating a spendable bucket, money intentionally set aside for living well early on in retirement. Ensure your financial plan has guardrails that let you spend more when you're most able to enjoy it, and then scale back later on. Number 3 was, I wish I'd traveled more when I was younger. Now, there's a common assumption that I'll do big trips later, but later doesn't always cooperate. Energy fades, health becomes unpredictable, and logistics that once felt simple, airports, time zones, long flights, suddenly feel like obstacles and not adventures. A friend of mine in his late 50s, very successful and very disciplined, kept saying, "We'll do South America when we're retired." 2 years after retirement, his health changed dramatically and long-haul trips became completely unrealistic. He told me we were always planning for next year, and now this isn't even on the table. Travel demands boldness and stamina. It's not just about the money, it's about timing and how you want to experience the world. The early phase of retirement, or even the years just before it, is often the best window for meaningful, active travel. The regret isn't that they didn't travel at all, is that they waited too long to do the kind of travel they really wanted. So consider taking stock of all your different travel goals and perhaps ranking them by intensity and front-loading the ones that are harder to do. Number 4 is that I wish I pursued new interests earlier on. Now, there's a quiet belief that passions and hobbies are something that you'll figure out later. But that's rarely how it actually works. When you delay too long, it becomes much harder to know what genuinely excites you outside of work. A law firm partner I know who retired at 50 with no plan beyond more golf. 6 months in, he was absolutely bored out of his mind, not because he didn't have the time, but because he hadn't practiced curiosity around the different things he might like. He had spent 30 years being excellent at one thing, but never gave himself permission to be a beginner at others. Now, purpose, happiness, and contentment, they don't magically show up the day that you retire. It's something you need to build over time by trying new things, stumbling a little bit and seeing what sticks. So our advice here is to start small and to start now. Explore, take a class perhaps, pick up an instrument, learn to cook, take up gardening, volunteer. Exploring your interests now builds a bridge to more meaningful retirement later on. Number 5, I wish I'd looked after my health much more. Many people treat health like it's a background task, something they'll get to once work slows down. It's rarely seen as urgent until it suddenly really is. Many people pour energy into building wealth, but they neglect the one thing that actually lets them enjoy it. You can retire at 55 with everything financially lined up, but if you haven't looked after yourself, your dream of walking the Amalfi Coast could turn into a guided bus tour. Health isn't a nice to have in retirement, it's the absolute enabler. It's what lets you travel, stay independent, spend time with your loved ones, and do the things that give your life meaning. Start treating your health like a core part of your retirement strategy. Build strength, not just spreadsheets. Block time for movement like you might a key meeting. Optimize your sleep and your nutrition like you would your financial plan, because this is exactly what's going to enable you to have a really enjoyable retirement. So, how do you actually avoid these regrets we're talking about? How do you make sure that 10 or 20 years from now, you're not looking back thinking, why didn't I see it sooner? Earlier, I mentioned a resource that we often use with our clients. It's called the No Regrets Accountability Document. It's simple but powerful. It's not about the numbers or technical strategy. It's all about the perspective, the qualitative aspects of life. It forces you to zoom out and ask the much bigger life questions, the ones that people often only start thinking about once it's already too late. Here's an example of mine. Over the years, my accountability document has helped me walk the Inca Trail, climb Kilimanjaro twice, one of those times with my 12-year-old son. It's helped me hike to Mount Everest in Nepal, and most importantly, to create meaningful memories with my loved ones, things like unforgettable holiday experiences. This document is designed to bring clarity before a crisis, to act as a prompt, so you don't just have to build a wealthy retirement, but you get to live a meaningful life now and in the future. If you'd like help putting together an accountability document, please just drop us a message using the link below, and one of us will happily walk you through it. And if you're thinking seriously about your legacy, the next step is knowing how to pass on your wealth the right way. So watch this video next where I break down the exact method high net worth individuals use to protect what they've built and pass it on with purpose.